Thank you, Coach. First, I have to say for all you guys, I can vividly remember the feeling in between the first practice to the second practice. So I do feel for you. I would be in a state of depression right about this moment. So the fact that you're here with smiles on your face, excited for the second practice, I really appreciate that, and I hope we make it worth your time. Coach Ullery is, other than my family, is the sole reason that I was able to get a college scholarship. Lifted me to levels that I did not think were possible. If you look at how good I was going into high school versus how good I was when I left high school. So when you talk about impact, nobody in my life outside of my family has had more impact literally on my entire life than Coach Ullery. So that's why this is special to me. When Coach Wilhite brought this up, I thought, well, let's do this in front of your guys. This would be a lot of fun to be able to hopefully have him share some knowledge, maybe in a little bit different setting than normal, than just probably crushing the offensive lineman like he did when I was playing. But I couldn't be more excited, and I'd like to get it started just by giving Coach a big round of applause. All right, thank you. All right, let's get into it, Coach. So I've interviewed about 350 leaders from all places in the world when it comes to industry, coaches, CEOs of billion-dollar companies, and I'm always fascinated by what they deem as excellent. So from your perspective, you've been around guys who played multiple years in the NFL, Pro Bowlers, Super Bowl winners. You've played a big role in developing them. When you think about the commonalities among people who sustain excellence, they're not good for a little bit, but they have the ability to sustain it over time. What have you found that those people have in common?
Well, there's all different levels of leadership. There's all styles of leadership. And sustained excellence has always kind of intrigued me. Watching the New England Patriots, watching the Green Bay Packers back when they were winning championship after championship, the Dallas Cowboys, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, the Chicago Bulls back in the Michael Jordan days. That amazed me because if you're in athletics, I think, and maybe even more so when you get to the level of your leading in athletics, you understand how difficult it is to win. Yep. You're sitting up in the stands and you're yelling down there and say, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? It looks really easy. When you're watching on TV, it looks even easier. Mm-hmm. But when you're right there and you're trying to be successful day after day, year after year, week after week, it is tough. So that really intrigues me. And I think even though there's different styles of leadership, you think of your head coach in high school, Bob Gregg. He was like a Vince Lombardi type, right? I mean, he was demanding, militaristic, driven, was going to drive you, did some really, really crazy stuff. Yeah. That at the time, at first I didn't really understand what he was doing, why he was doing it, and later on I understand it fully, and I realized how good of a coach he was. That's one extreme, and they were very, very successful guys like that, maybe out of fear. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of a whole lot of other things. The other end of the spectrum, I think, is Tony Dungy, a guy like him. Extremely soft-spoken. A guy that played for him with the Colts one time told me that Tony Dungy never swore, never raised his voice, never yelled at anyone. And I asked him, I said, well, how did the players react to that? And they said they loved him and they would play unbelievably hard for him. They had so much respect. And I asked him why, and he didn't hesitate. He said, because all of us do not want to disappoint him. Mm-hmm. It's almost like he's your father, your grandfather. We don't want to disappoint him, so we played really, really hard. So I don't know that one leadership style is better than another, but I think you mentioned common traits between leaders. I think they have to be organized, and I think they probably are, because they have to set a plan. They have to have a plan. Otherwise, the people you're directing, you can't be throwing darts at a board. There's got to be a plan of how you're going to get to where you're going to go, or where you want to go. And then after that, I think they've got to have a tremendous work ethic. Because I think all successful leaders ask the people they're leading to do a whole lot to reach the goal they're together trying to reach. And if you want them to follow you, I think you've got to exhibit the same work ethic or more. Otherwise, I think young kids especially are going to look at you and say, you're asking me to work that hard, and you're not, and you're showing up late, or you're not showing up at all, or you're not prepared, or whatever. Yeah. So I think those things are. I think also some of the guys I mentioned there and the people that I'm thinking of as I talk here, I think they have extremely high expectations, and they're unwilling to ever waver from those expectations. Yeah. Like they have the expectations maybe way up here, and just because guys won't reach them, they don't lower down here just to feel good about it. They keep them up there, and they keep hammering and hammering to reach those expectations. I think those are the biggest things. Probably humility too.
Yeah.
If you don't have some humility as a leader, I think that the people you're leading are going to look at you and say, hey, this is all about you. Yeah. And it can't be. You got to make sure that they realize it's all about them, and you're just in a position to help them get there.
One of the things, I went to your Hall of Fame induction at Centerville, and that was something that I took away from your talk. You walked up there with no notes and just, I think, poured out your heart, and you said that what I learned from Coach Greg was the fact that essentially he had this ability to raise the new normal, as I would, if I had to really think about it. Meaning, I felt almost invincible by the time I got on the field. And I was talking with Coach Wellhite about this, about sacrifice and discipline, and why you do all these hard things in the off season. It's to get that feeling, right? To generate that feeling of, I'm almost invincible on Friday nights. Can you talk a little bit about that mindset of preparation, discipline, of sacrifice when it comes to playing?
Sure, I think I learned it from Bob Gregg because of the some of the things he asked you guys to do, he asked all of us to do, were not the norm. They were extremes. And what I learned, and like I said before, at first I thought, why are we doing this? This is crazy, some of the stuff we're doing. It might be conditioning, it might be weight room stuff, it might be practice stuff, it could be anything. But then I learned that the reason we were doing it was he was trying to instill in you that there's another level up there. There's another level above where you think individually you can go. And I 100% believe that for all people. You may think your level of what you can achieve is right here. It's not. It ain't even close there. It's way above it. And by doing things that you never dreamed you could possibly do, I think that gets instilled in you, and then you do them. Mm-hmm. You're like, wow, I never dreamed I could do that. And unfortunately, today, I think we're in an era where mediocrity and average is okay. I think too many people accept just mediocrity, that's okay. I was told to mow the yard, I mowed it. Did you mow it good? I got it mowed.
Why is that? What's changed?
Well, I hate to be another person, another older person who's ripping on technology, but I'm going to rip on technology here. I think literally today, not just young people, and I don't blame young people, I blame us. Mm-hmm. I blame us for bringing this on. They can literally, if they want to, they can lay in bed all day, have their phone over here, have their Xbox over here, have their laptop on their lap, have their iPad over here, have a TV on Netflix up here, another TV with like 250 stations on it, and they don't have to get out of bed. They are totally entertained by everything here. They don't even have to get out of bed to eat. They could DoorDash it. DoorDash and leave your door unlocked, say the door's unlocked, would you bring it in my bedroom for me? And they just lay there and they bring it in the bedroom, they might even feed you, I don't know. They could probably do that. And you never have to do anything to fill your day or entertain yourself or expand your mind at all. You're just laying there.
Yeah.
And that's an extreme example I'm giving, but I think that's part of it. That we're just okay. I'm just punching the clock. I'm just getting the job done, and I'm not striving to be elite or excellent anymore. And there's another level. There's definitely another level up there always.
That's one of the cool things about football, though, right? I hope it still plays that role. Is that Asia and I talk about this all the time. Where we hated a lot of it in the moment, like some of the really hard stuff. That's why I mentioned being like depressed in between practices and those types of feelings. However, as I look back over the many years since I've finished playing, nothing I've done since then has been as mentally challenging as what I was put through for those 4 years at Centerville High School. And that's what I'm grateful for. And that's what I think a message for these guys too, when you think about like, man, this is hard, or all my buddies who play basketball, they play games all the time, and we only get 10 Fridays a year guaranteed. But football can set you up literally for the rest of your life. And it seems that you, as a coach, have understood that and knew it before we did, and that's part of the process of why we do things that are so hard.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, and again, I learned this. I had a great mentor in Coach Greg, and I didn't miss a thing he did because I was so amazed at how, the guy was an X and O genius in football, but he realized that's really not the most important thing in coaching football. He realized that, and probably if I could name one thing that I got from him more than anything else, and it deals with the topic we're talking about right now, is I think young people will live up to your expectations or down to your expectations almost all the time. And so it's up to me or any coach or a captain of a football team or whatever to place the level of those expectations. And just like you think of some of the things you did, running 4440s or maybe a 4-station, 10-minute per station, crazy championship circuit of agility and non-stop stuff, and you're thinking 40 minutes of a circuit straight, or circuits in the weight room of 42 stations or whatever, and you think, there's no way I can do that. But I watched, and you guys responded every single time. So no matter what expectation he put up there, you responded. And I'm sure, I'll tell you a story about your brother. I think also if you lower the expectations down here, that's where most people are going to go. Mm-hmm. They're going to stop right there if that's the expectation. If you have a weight workout, when the weight workout's over and you say it's over, most everybody, if not everybody, leaves. And that's okay because that's what the workout was. But I remember guys like your brother, the reason they excelled so much in my mind was they reached that expectation and then they exceeded it. They said, I mean, how many times he would come back, workout's over, everybody leaves, you turn around, there's AJ. Mm-hmm. He's going through like another workout. Yeah. I've told the story many times when, I don't know what year he was at Ohio State, but I think it was right after the Michigan game. They had played Michigan on Saturday, beat them. The next morning, Jerry Rudzinski, who was an altar football player, went on and played linebacker at Ohio State, and I think he was with the Browns. Yep. He played. Now he's an Ohio State, still Ohio State, like commentator for football and sports and stuff. He had called me about something. He was writing a story about something. He calls me on Sunday and says, hey, I went into the Woody Hayes facility this morning, the day after the Michigan game, and Jerry wasn't playing anymore. He went in to get a workout in, and he goes, I think it was 7 o'clock. He said, I got there at 7 o'clock. I'm going to the facility, and AJ is walking out of the facility. He's already got a workout in. They just beat Michigan the day before, and his mind was on, how can I now get better? Mm-hmm. And the next morning, he's in the Woody Hayes weight room getting better by himself. Mm-hmm. He's coming, I don't know if it was by himself, he was leaving by himself. And my response to Jerry when he told me that, I said, that doesn't surprise me a bit, knowing AJ. And I said, as a matter of fact, I would venture to say it's not his last workout of the day today. Because it didn't matter what expectation you put on a guy like that. He decided, I'm going to do more than that. And he's blessed with great athletic ability, but he took that, and that's guys like you were the same way. You have great athletic ability. You could be a great high school football player and just perform here. But you guys became elite high school football players because you went to there and beyond. Yeah. Over.
I think part of leadership, as you mentioned, is you have to go first, meaning I think we would look to our coaching staff initially and to see how you acted on a day-to-day basis. And the fact that I don't know if this still happens, so maybe it's a risky topic to bring up, but this thought of like we would try to beat you to the weight room, or beat you, AJ and I would, when he was a freshman and sophomore, I was a junior and senior, and beat you to the weight room, the locker room, whatever. Does this still happen today or no? Meaning, and we always knew, I gained more confidence that my coach was going to outcoach the other coaches because he outworked them. And then that created this feeling in me that, well, I have to do the same thing. And then as a leader, as the quarterback of the team, my teammates saw that and they followed. It all started here, came to here, and then came everyone. And that's how you average 50 a game or do whatever the things we did. What's that mentality that you have of like, I'm going to be here first, I'm going to outwork everybody. I'm probably already smarter than them anyway, but I'm still going to outwork them.
Those are kind words. I'm far from smarter than anybody, but believe it or not, it really has nothing to do with being the first person there. I'm crazy. Okay, there's no doubt.
You're crazy?
I'm crazy.
Okay.
Crazy as far as going places that early. As far as, but that's everything. It's not just coming here. My wife, who's sitting back here, will tell you it kind of annoys her sometimes. I mean, if I'm going to the airport and my flight leaves at whatever time, I want to be there like 3 hours early. And it really has nothing to do with being first. It has everything to do with making sure I'm prepared.
Yep.
I don't want to be the weak link. I want to control what I can control.
Yep.
If I'm going to the airport, I don't want to get caught in traffic. I don't want to get caught at the border, crossing from Canada to the United States, and they pull me over and take me inside and search my car. Now I'm late for a flight. I don't want to get to the airport and the line's too long at security. I just always want to prepare, so I'm not the weak link. So in relation to football, it's just, and for me to prepare, I got to be in kind of a quiet place.
Mm-hmm.
I became a morning guy when I was in college, because I was a math major, and it was tough. Math was tough, and you're taking very high level courses, and I had 3 roommates, and every night my roommates are going out and doing whatever college students do, and they're having a good time, and I'm at the library. I'm studying calculus because I had to, because I knew my mom and dad, if those grades weren't to their liking, they'd pull the plug on me. So the only way I could do both, have the best of both worlds, if I wanted to go out with them at night, I had to get up early in the morning. So I would get up early in the morning. It was 3 o'clock if I had an exam to study for, 5 o'clock if I had a 9 o'clock class, I had an assignment to turn in. And I just got to the point where I kind of liked it. It's quiet, there's no distractions. And then when I had young kids at home, I didn't want to go home and take lesson plans home, be preparing for football practice the next day, grading tests, because I wanted to have time with my kids. So I would go in early in the morning, and then when I became the athletic director and head football coach, the same thing. Yeah. You can't watch film in the middle of the day because there's too many things going on with your job. So I would do it that way. I just don't want to be the weak link. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything possible to do my part. So even if I do screw up, it's not by lack of preparation or lack of work.
Yeah. One of the themes that I've found amongst all these interviews I do is that people who are willing to delay gratification and even voluntarily put themselves in hard situations are better long term. And I think I pulled that from my time in high school, those 4 years, starting as an 8th grader in the summer, of being able to delay gratification, because there wasn't people cheering when we worked out. There were little attaboys, but other than that, there wasn't much. How do you instill that in a program with these guys to say, you have to understand what we're doing in May, what we're doing in June and July, and right now what you're about to go do again is going to make us better in October, in November, and moving forward. Because I feel like that might be something that has changed as well, because it's so easy to get it right now, as you mentioned, that the ability to delay gratification is almost a superpower with people today in all walks of life, and certainly here, I think, with young people.
Yeah, I agree. And to answer your question, I think it's really, really difficult, because instant gratification is what everybody wants now, especially young people. They want instant gratification. If I got a job at McDonald's and they won't get me off Saturday to go to the concert, I'll just quit. Because I want to be able to do that right now. If I can't set my schedule, take my vacation when I want, I'll quit. Foresight. If I had to say, there's one thing that maybe, people always ask you, how are players or how are high school kids different now than they were 40 years ago or whatever? And I think they are different, but over the course of a decade, everything changes and things. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Everybody's born the same. But then over the course of however many years they've lived, we as adults have changed their lives for them. And I do think that right now, probably they may have a little bit less foresight than they used to. And I go back to everything's right in front of them. They have instant access to news, to entertainment, to anything they want. They have instant access to it right now. Whereas 20 years ago you didn't. If you wanted to watch a ball game in Dallas, you had to go to Dallas probably. It wasn't going to be on TV here. If you wanted anything, if you wanted to see somebody in concert, you had to check the calendar and see when they were going to be in area, because you couldn't just pull it up on your computer and live watch it and stuff like that. So I think foresight. And that's why when I talk to young people, a lot of times I tell them, if you are unsuccessful when you got out of high school and college in whatever field you want to go into, look in the mirror, because the competition is not real stiff. If you just have some foresight and some strong work ethic, you can do whatever you want. When you enter the adult world, you can literally do anything you want, because most young people don't have a whole lot of foresight. It's like, right now, I want to do what's the best thing for me to do right now and not be looking ahead.
I 100% agree, and I think that's why this inspires me to be in front of a group, because I really feel like there's such an opportunity for younger people that's right here. But I know when I was in high school and somebody was saying this to me, I probably wouldn't have listened. I listened to my coaches, but I don't know if I would have listened to a guy like me up here. I hope it kind of seeps through and maybe gets amongst the team. And that's another topic I want to bring up is that, so I was fortunate to play as a freshman at Centerville, played quarterback. And what I've found since I played and then went on to the business world is that I've been on winning teams and I've been on losing teams. And the biggest difference between the teams that win and the teams that lose is that the players had such ownership and were empowered by their coach, and they held each other accountable. And so I would ask you about this now, Coach, I was, as a ninth grader, as a freshman, I was scared to death of my offensive line. They would punch me in the chest, in the face if I messed up, if I blew an assignment, if I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I was literally scared. You probably saw it in my eyes. That it was just a sense of relief if I happened to score a touchdown or do my job. But that was powerful, man. And I took the same when I got older. I didn't like hit people like that, but I felt like I could hold people accountable as I got older, and that's what made our team. How is that now? Is that how it is? If it's not, what do you say to young people to say about these empowered teams of you holding him accountable instead of you having to hold him accountable?
Yeah, I would say it's not nearly like that. I know what you're talking about, and they may think you're exaggerating a little bit, and I know you're not. That it was extreme back when you played and I think it came from guys, you're talking about the offensive line because you were the quarterback, and if all of a sudden you were misreading a play and they were doing their job and working really, really hard and you did it over and over and over, they got upset because they're doing their job and you're not making the play successful because you keep making a mistake over and over. And it's not nearly that way now. It's a different culture, different era we live in, but I still think it has a place. Maybe not hitting each other or anything like that, but I don't think the only way to motivate people is to put your arm around them and say, come on, Billy, you're doing a good job, just do it a little bit better the next time. It gets to a point where people are motivated a different way. I remember Coach Greg saying one time, he said, with a player, he said, you can, when they make a mistake, you can tell them what the mistake is. You can demonstrate the right way to do it. You can have a player demonstrate it. You can show them on film. You can hug them and say, please do it. You can kick them in the rear, figuratively, and say, you got to do it. And the final straw is, if you still won't do it, I got to put you on the bench. You're going to the bench, and you're not going to play. So there's all kinds of ways to motivate. And I know some of the guys you're talking about there. And the thing, I strongly believe you can, and we're talking about players treating players, but same with coaches, coaching players, you can coach them as hard as you want. Literally, as hard as you want, you can coach these guys, and they will respond as long as they know you care about them.
Yep.
That's it. And those offensive linemen cared about you too. They were fighting to protect you, fighting to get you yards. They really cared.
Yeah.
So you responded. Right. You responded to them. So a coach that coached defensive line when you were there, I won't mention his name, he was a wild man. Typical defensive line coach, kind of. He was kind of crazy. But I tell you what, he fought for his players. Yeah. He stood up for them. And we played a game at home. And at halftime, he always took his guys outside the back door of the locker room. And they met out there on these benches. On Monday morning, my principal, I was a teacher at the time, came to me in my classroom and said, hey, I got to talk to you about something. Said, so-and-so at halftime, I went around back. He went back around there to have the principal to have a cigarette back there. He said, I went back there, and so-and-so was ripping his players to death, berating them, screaming at them, etc. I said, well, okay. Do you want me to say something? He goes, I think you should. And I said, well, okay, before you tell me I should say something, I want you to know that those players will do anything in the world for that guy. Mm-hmm. They will run through a wall for him because they know he cares every bit about them as much as he's yelling at them there. Mm-hmm. So I think you can do it. I think players today can still motivate and get to a point and nothing else happens. I encourage them. I said, sometimes you have to take a kid aside and you're one of your teammates and you say, we don't do it this way. There's a different way to do it. And my expectation as a senior is you do it the way that we do it here at Springboro, and there are no options to do it other ways.
Yeah, I think my dad had a great quote in passing. We were actually, he's helping me write a book, and talking about leadership and managing and how to hopefully get your team to respond. And he said, it's a lot harder when you care. And it's so simplistic, but it's so true that when you care, and I think of like as a quarterback, you're a quarterback, right? I think as a quarterback, if your teammates know how much you care, then it kind of opens up the doors to do those types of things. When I finished playing football after college, I played in the Arena League for a little bit and got my first job in sales, and then got a job as a manager a few years later. And my whole thought of the framework for the team I wanted to build was, how can I build a team like our senior year season where we won those first 11 games? And how can I build a team of people in the business world where you're not going to be physical, obviously, but hire people that are going to hold each other accountable, where I am just kind of steering the ship, but the team is going to be run by the players. And I'm going to empower them to do that. And that was the process that it worked the exact same. It didn't happen overnight. It took time. It took good hiring and firing in some cases, but of saying, these people care about one another and they're able to hold each other accountable because they cared so much. And so I think that whole thought process around caring is it sounds simplistic, but it's true. And it leads me to, for you, AJ and I talk about this a lot as well. I mentioned this because you're a topic of conversation quite a bit, because we both played for you. You were his head coach for 2 years, my offense coordinator for 4. I'm certain you've had opportunities to coach in college and maybe even professionally if you wanted to. Why high school kids? Why stay in the high school area and not go for bigger? I mean, we've played in college. You're a better coach than any college coach I've ever had. And I played at 2 different schools for a lot of really good coaches that won a lot of games. I'm curious, why this level? Why stay here?
You just make a lot more money at high school than you do.
I know it's the opposite, right?
It's simple to me. When I was in high school, I loved the high school atmosphere as a student.
Yep.
And when I graduated and went to college, I knew that I wanted to go back to high school and I wanted to teach and coach, because I loved that age. I loved everything about high school, and I just had to decide what I was going to teach. And I figured that out. And once I got into high school, I loved it even more than I thought I was going to. And it's taking high school kids and trying to mold a football team or whatever your sport you're coaching is hard, because you take whatever comes through the doors. There's no going out and recruiting, hey, we need a linebacker, let's go find one and bring him in, see if he'll switch schools or anything. You just take what walks through the doors every year and you do the best that you can with that. So it mainly was, I love that age. I love this age. I still do to this day. I love everything about these guys. And so I never really, if I was going to coach at a different level, there's no security in coaching in college or the pros. You're not going to coach one place for 20 years or anything. So your family's going to be moving all over and all that. And you're coaching guys that maybe have a different motive for what they're doing, have different goals than you do, and they're more individualistic than high school kids hopefully are. So it's basically just as simple as that. I really, I'm doing what I love doing, and I can honestly say I really don't. I've said this many, many times in talking about my career. This is 43 years for me of doing this stuff, and whether it was teaching, being an AD or a coach, I've never once felt like I had a job in my. Never once. I've never had trouble going to bed at night because I knew I was going to love waking up in the morning and go doing what I was doing, whether it was teaching math, I loved that. Being an athletic director, I loved it. Coaching whatever sport I was coaching, I loved it. So, I just think it's important to have a passion for what you're doing. Yeah. And if you find that, why change?
Why offensive line? Why is that your specialty area?
Well, it wasn't always my specialty area, and I never.
As long as I've known you, I guess.
Yeah. It's. I never longed to be an offensive line coach. I started out. I was a skill player when I played, and then I was coaching quarterbacks and running backs. And one year, Bob Gregg said, during the season, he just looked at me in the office one day and said, "You're coaching offensive line next year." And when Bob told you to do something, you weren't going to say, well, I don't think I'm going to do that. You just said, okay. And I think I was similar to many, many coaches in football. Unless you played offensive line, I think most football coaches would say the position they would feel least comfortable coaching is offensive line, because I think most football coaches know the least amount about that position unless they played it. And that was me. I never played it, and I didn't really, as I'd only coached about 5 years when he told me, gave me the non-ultimatum demand, this is what you're doing. So that off season, I tell you, it was probably the biggest learning off season I ever had. Mm-hmm. I went anywhere and everywhere and talked to everyone I could find who had some expertise in offensive line play. And every person I talked to who was coaching them would leave me with this. They would say, you are going to love coaching offensive line. And I thought, yeah, right, this is going to be a battle. But I learned real quick why. I mean, offensive linemen sitting in here are not going to like hearing this. They're going to like hearing part of it, but they're really not going to like hearing the other part. I truly believe on a football team, that position is by far the absolute hardest position on the field to succeed at. And it's also the most impactful as far as winning football games. And I think most defensive coaches would say that. If the offensive line can control the line of scrimmage and keep the defense on the sidelines, so only have to come out, they can get well rested. Defensive players love it. When they can sit on the sideline, get well rested, and come out blazing, they love it. So offensive linemen, most important and most difficult job, and at the same time, they're the least athletic players on the field by far. The least athletic, the least talented. So you're asking them to do the most important job that has the most impact in the game, and they can't jump as high, run as fast. Sometimes they fall over bags when they try to walk over them, all these things. So it's a tremendous challenge. And I love challenges, and I love seeing them succeed. Because, it's the last stop. Offensive line is the last stop. There's no, a linebacker's not cutting it, he becomes a defensive end. A defensive tackle's not cutting it, he becomes a guard.
Yep.
An offensive lineman's not cutting it, they're probably maybe on the field goal team, maybe nowhere.
Yeah.
So I just love the challenge there. Of helping them succeed when it's really, really hard.
Yeah. Earning respect is a big deal to me. One of the things I talk about with leaders is how to build skills and earn respect and credibility. Because if you're looking around your teammates and you want them to follow you, they have to respect you. And I think that's something that you've exhibited really well, and it helped us as players earn the respect of our teammates. And I think that's the stock answer is, you have to work really hard. But I'm curious, what are some ways, in addition to being an incredibly hard worker, can you earn respect from your peers? And the reason I ask is not just for these guys, it's for them 10, 20 years from now. They can take the same things that perhaps you're going to share with them as earning respect of their peers and their teammates into their life after they get done playing football.
Yeah, obviously they got to work hard. I in speaking to my offensive linemen, especially the seniors, when I'm talking to them about you have to exhibit leadership qualities, you've got to be a leader, et cetera. And by the way, that's one of the terms I think we throw around as football coaches all the time, leadership along with mental toughness and discipline that we never really define to the players. I know when I was a player and they were talking about discipline and leadership, I was like, well, I don't really know what that means. Mm-hmm. But when I talk to my offensive linemen, I say, you can't ask, especially the seniors, you can't ask anything of anyone else in this group if you're not willing and already doing it yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't ask them to go harder. Don't ask them to show up earlier. Don't ask them to do extra. Don't ask them to have a better attitude unless you are doing it yourself. So I think you have to care that much about everyone else in whatever group you're leading. If you're a captain of a football team or senior leader of a football team, I think everyone needs to know that you passionately care about them and the program you're involved in. I think that's probably at the top of the list. That has to be, you can't just do your job. We always tell seniors when they become seniors, doing what you did last year as a junior is not enough. You got to do more. And I know a lot of times they're thinking, what do you mean, more? I busted my tail and did everything I could last year. That's not enough. If you want to be a leader, it's not enough. And if you don't have leaders within the team, I think it's really tough to have success. I just think, answering your question, summarizing, I just think you really have to care and it has to show how much you care about people, and you have to do at least as much and probably a lot more than everyone else is doing to get them to follow you.
I played for 1 year with your son, Brent, who is now the head coach at Centerville. I'm curious, not only because I don't know the topic of conversations if you guys don't talk about football, because I know there's some relationships where you won't because you're both in the same profession, or maybe you do. I'm curious for those listening who maybe want to be a coach, or maybe some of what you say could relate to people in all areas of what they're doing, regardless of age. What are some of the general pieces of advice that you give to somebody like Brent, your son, who is now a head coach, high pressure situation? I realize you guys play against each other, so it's kind of interesting in that regard. But what are some things you share with him?
To be honest, I don't try to overwhelm him with advice. If he asks, I give it to him. But I know I have told him, you have to formulate things you believe in. You have to come up with, you have to have strong beliefs on what you're doing in a leadership position like that, especially in a place like that where there's you're under a microscope. And formulate your beliefs based not on what you did at Ohio State or what you did in high school or what me and Coach Greg did and you saw us do. Formulate, or what you did when you coached at Dublin Kaufman. Formulate them based on all that stuff and what you truly believe, and then stay true to that. I mean, absolutely stay true to it. Block out the outside noise. Don't let it influence you at all. I mean, I can think of times where there was a ton of outside noise when I was coaching there, and negative outside noise for this reason or that. You just got to get to the point where you don't even hear it. You have to block it out and make it meaningless. So that those are the main things. Football things, we talk at times about things, and I usually give him bad advice so he coaches bad and we can beat him. I mean, that's my strategy.
One of the things too, over the course of our 4 years together, you adapted to the skill set of your players really well. Prior to me getting there wasn't guys who could throw very well. I got there, we could throw. We opened it up a bit, and I obviously appreciated that ability to adapt and evolve even over the course of just 4 years. It leads me to the question of your, I guess, framework for continuous improvement, adaptation, the way that you view how to operate. When I was at these guys' age, I didn't think about that at all. I just showed up and did whatever you told me to do. But I do think kids are smarter now. They're more advanced now. They could create some sort of framework for their own continuous improvement. What's yours? What's your framework or your thought process around, I'm going to be able to continue to adapt and improve for the times?
Yeah, probably in a nutshell, just listen and learn. Listen and learn, see and hear both. Without a doubt, I think I'm a better learner today than any year of my life, really. When I started out coaching, I thought I knew everything, and then once you start coaching, you realize you knew nothing. I mean, you're looking around saying, man, I had no idea that it was this involved, and this is how you coach, and this is what you have to know, and this is the time you have to spend, and you learn really, really quick. So any chance I get, like when I was coaching with Coach Greg, every single morning before school, I would go down in his phys ed office. He taught phys ed, and I'd get there I knew he got there about 7. I'd get down there about 7:10, and we'd have a half hour to 45 minutes. We would sit and talk. He'd be eating these donuts from Bill's Donuts like clockwork. He was a machine. He'd be eating them, and we would talk about everything. Tons about football, but more about people. He was a master about human nature and motivating young kids and stuff. He was a master, and I just was like a sponge then, taking that in. And to this day, if there's people I think are great leaders or know a lot more than me, which is most people, I'm going to listen to them when they talk. And I read more today, not books. I wish I did read books, but Mom never made me. But I wish she would have made me read books and play the piano. I would love doing that today. Yeah. But I will read any topic that intrigues me. I'll have my iPad out, and I will search and I'll read that about that topic or that person to find out. So it's just, I think the main thing in continual learning is realizing that you've never arrived. I mean, I think too many people succeed in anything, and once they've succeeded, they think they've arrived. It's like, here I am. Now I'm always going to succeed. And it just doesn't work that way. And when you're young, you don't realize that.
Yeah.
You think, hey, I got the job I wanted. Life's cool. I can just live the rest of my life now.
I was lucky to have JJ Redick on my show, and JJ just signed a good deal with New Orleans, and he was going back to Duke to talk to their players, and he saw seeing literally right across the front row all these McDonald's All-Americans, like literally every guy on the team pretty much. And he's getting ready to give his talk, and he looks down, he sees right here, and the guy's got a big tattoo right here, and it says, "Arrived." And he goes, "Hang on a second. Like, I'm going to throw out my prepared remarks. You've never arrived. You're always becoming." And that became like his ethos for life, and that's how he's lasted as this undersized little white dude shooting threes for 14 years in the NBA, of this mindset of no matter what happens, player of the year, all-state, scholarship offers, doesn't matter, I'm always becoming. I think it's a great mindset.
I think that's a great point, that you can literally do whatever you want to do. I mean, you can do. I'm a big fan of JJ Redick's from this point on, since you just said that.
Yeah.
I think that's so important, that people realize that don't rest on your laurels. Somebody's out to take your spot, and it's always going to be that way. I don't care what field you're in; it's always going to be that way. And you never know when your spot's going to go to someone else, or whoever you're working for is going to say, "Hit the road. We want somebody new." So you're always becoming. That's great.
Coach, do you have questions, or do you want to open up to the guys? I'm not sure how much time we have, or I want to make sure we hit.
We got a little time.
Okay. Do you have a question, or do any of the guys want to get going here?
Anybody? Got a question for Coach? I've probably got a question for you.
Okay. Yeah.
So you've interviewed a lot of people on the topic of leadership, and today you get to interview somebody who was a leader in your life at a young age.
Yeah.
Somebody who, like you said, other than your parents. As you have studied leaders, and you've interviewed them, and you've studied about them, preparing to interview them, what do you find is a challenge for a leader when they have peers that they are leading? So many times as a young person and a coach, they're put in a position of leadership because someone hired them to do it, or they're paid to do it. But when you're leading your peers, suddenly you find yourself in a position where I think I can lead this group. No one has told me you're the leader. What are the challenges associated with that?
Yeah, I think there could be challenges from a friendship perspective. Because I remember I went from my freshman year to my sophomore year. All of my friends played freshman football. And I didn't. I played on the varsity team. And then they came up, and there was a brief moment of disconnect. I remember Coach Craig and Coach Ullery pulled me aside, though, because as a freshman, I did probably what a lot of young guys did. I didn't say a word, right? I called the play, no huddle, and then I would call the cadence and then go. They said, you've got to find your voice. And they probably don't even remember telling me that, but it's time. It's time for you to find your voice. That, as someone who was a little bit more naturally introverted, was a tough thing to do. And tough because I did worry about perception. I worried about friendship. How is this going to go? Can I treat my friends like some of these older guys who I'm scared of, but they're lifting me to levels? That's becoming my responsibility. I have to voice that. I got to do more, as Coach just said, than just execute my role. If somebody is not doing their job, it becomes part of my responsibility to let them know that I expect more of them. And I do think there may have been some trade-offs where they weren't necessarily, I wasn't necessarily best friends with everybody. I think I was a good teammate. I tried to lead, but I also feel my best friend, honestly, was my younger brother. Coach probably knows that, and that was because that's just, I don't know, a brother's type of a friendship, where I focused more probably on leading, holding people accountable, trying to lead with my actions first. But if somebody didn't do their job, it became my job to let them know. And though, if they did do their job, I need to tell them, I need to hug them, I need to love them, I need to tell them that, to make sure they know that I appreciate their work, especially the O-line. Like, my dad was always good helping me. We would always have those guys over. We made sweatshirts. We had like all these different things. I tried to show my appreciation and love for those guys because they never really got any notoriety, even though they were one of the main reasons that we were so good. So it's a little bit of both, of showing the love, showing that you care, but also I think I prioritize more being a leader on the team than I maybe did some of the friendships. And I don't necessarily regret that, though. I think that was the proper move, and I think it probably helped our team. I mean, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but
I was thinking when you were talking there, to tag on to your question there about leading your peers, Coach Wilhite, we talked recently about, I got a call from someone who was, Kirk Herbstreit's just turning 50 years old. Maybe he has already now, I'm not sure when his birthday is, but and this person was saying they were putting some stuff together to give him, and they want to know, when did he become a leader? Do you remember in high school, when did the light bulb go on and he became a leader? And I think they were surprised with my answer, because I said, as a sophomore, Kirk was a JV quarterback, very, very introverted, didn't speak much. I mean, I taught him in class too. He'd sit in the back, and if I look at him, he'd go like this, meaning, please don't ask me a question, because he did not want to speak ever. And as a junior, he was a very good quarterback, no leader at all. Our team was really good. We were the number one team in Ohio in the ratings in Ohio. At the end of the season, we were 10-0, but we never got better the entire year. We just kind of plateaued after the first game. We beat Princeton, who was one of the top two teams in the state every year back then. We beat them, and we stayed right there all year. We had no leadership on the team, and Kirk would refuse to take the bull by the horns and be the leader. So we get beat in our first playoff game. Got beat by Dayton Dunbar, that was a good team, but they shouldn't have beat us. But so we come to fast forward to his senior year, and we had many talks with Kirk about, you're the guy. You're a national recruit now. You're the man. Everybody in this room is looking at you to point the direction. We go out, we lose game 1, we lose game 2, we're 0-2. We go up to Wayne to play. We're getting thrashed in the first half, and he scrambles because the offensive line is pretty much blocking no one. He scrambles to the sideline. He gets driven out of bounds into the track up at Wayne, and right then Kirk had it. I mean, he literally lost it. He got up. We were in a huddle back then. He ran out on the field. The team was in a huddle. I vividly remember this. He is physically punching people in the huddle. He was done with this abuse that our team was taking. He was physically punching people, yelling at them, screaming. I'm thinking, who is this guy? And from that point on, we lost that game. We were so far behind, we lost that one. We won the next 7. By the end of the year, I think we're the best team in the area. I don't think anybody was close to us. And he became a tremendous leader then. And he went on to Ohio State, and by the time he was playing at Ohio State, he was a great leader, and he's transformed into obviously tremendous college football personality. He's the best in the business, and you would never believe, from knowing how he was his freshman, sophomore, and junior year in high school, that he's even the same guy. So my point is, there's different ways to lead your peers. Some of it's taken, as I've saw many times as a head coach over there, after practice, a senior with his arm around a player, walking back to what you know as the jungle of just weeds and bushes. And I knew he wasn't walking back there, to play checkers or anything, but they were just going back to talk. A senior was taking him back there to say, look, we don't do things this way. You have to up your effort, change your attitude, and do things the way we do them here, and then we're all for you. So there's all kinds of ways, and Kirk's was just one way. My point, you have to step out of your comfort shell many times. You want to be a leader. If you want things around you to be better, then you got to have leadership from within the group.
It's much easier to follow. Just is. And I think leadership is a choice.
It's less fulfilling though too.
Absolutely less fulfilling, but it's an intentional choice to say, yes, I want that responsibility. I'm choosing that, and you have to make that choice daily. Say, I want to continue to be in that position. Take the good with the bad. Yeah, go ahead.
I got a follow up to your question, or my question. So I think when we're talking about leadership and holding your peers accountable, I think in this setting here, we commonly are thinking that's a finish through the line, if that's the sprint, or that's, hey, you better be alert for the snap count, because that's a mental thing. You got to be locked in, or know your assignment. And those are things that obviously are pertinent to people in the room. But you said something about friendship, and there was a little trade-off here at times.
Yeah.
So you're away from the football. This is a setting we're out socially, or we're in the locker room, or we're in school. It's something that you know that your players are potentially going to be involved with. And if I take a stand against this, because I know it's not what's best for our team.
Yeah.
If this goes bad, this isn't going to be good for anybody. It's it's not going to be the popular opinion. That trade-off, big time now, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think probably did cost some friendships for me personally, is that we just made, I say we, me and my younger brother made the conscious choice that like we just weren't going to engage in drugs and alcohol as athletes, and felt like, and so, you know, I've seen some high school friends recently, and there are at times I'm like, oh, you know, it would have been cool to hang out with them a little bit more. But it was never, I just, at the time, I never felt like that was going to benefit me in what I cared about most. Like I said, there are priorities in life. And that's why I don't ever want to act like it's all perfect. Like, you have to choose, you have to make choices. And I think I prioritized being as good as I could possibly be, because I also knew I was not near the best athlete on my own team. So I had to try to maximize everything I had. And I didn't want to do anything that would potentially get in the way of that. And I also felt a responsibility to my teammates. I didn't want to let them down, and I felt if I partook in some of those things, even though some of them may have, and I didn't, I felt like that was me not upholding my responsibility to them to get everything I could out of what I have been given. Still more than most, right? Very fortunate, but not good enough to where I could just show up and you roll out the ball and play. Like there are some guys now, you know, and I felt like, and I was grateful too that I had coaches who lifted me to levels that I didn't think possible. I would have never dreamt of starting even as a sophomore, let alone a freshman, and then having some success. That wasn't just, I just never thought that was possible. So that was part of it too, where it helped from a prioritization perspective of saying, well, I'm just gonna do everything I can when it comes to this.
Yeah, that you keep saying it. The easy thing is to follow. The tough thing is to lead, and that goes with this topic too. I mean, it's easy to just jump on a bandwagon and say, yeah, I'm going to follow you guys. That's the easiest thing to do. The toughest and most mature thing to do is say, I'm not going to do that at all, and not make adults make that decision for you. And it can be done. I mean, it can be. I just personally, one of my sons, my oldest son, had a lot of friends, and I found this out later when his friends were over after he was out of college even, and they said in all through high school, your son, he would never party with us. He would never go out with us. Well, he didn't know that. He didn't say he would never go out. He would never party with us. And they would tell me about that, say, we go out and, you know, we do this and that and the other, and he wouldn't partake. And I said, is that true? And they all said, yeah, absolutely. And there's no reason for him to lie to me then. He was like 24 years old at the time. And I said, but he was always with you. I said, yeah. They all said, yeah, he was always with us. He went with us and stuff. But we got to the point where we knew he was going to say no, and we loved the guy, and he was a good buddy. So we just never even offered him or anything. He would just hang out with us. He might go home early, he might not. But we just quit, you know. He had as much fun as we did. He just didn't do the same things as us. So no is an option. It's definitely an option.
I feel though a little old making a statement like that. I don't know about you. Like you guys are like, all right, they're rolling their eyes now. But I agree though. I mean, it's a choice. It's a choice, and I don't know what it's like to be in high school right now. So I do empathize with that a little bit. But I do know that it's a choice to be made, and some people choose to make it, and they need to, and it's right there for you. But I also realize it's probably hard to be a high school kid right now. Questions?
Mr. Martin, our principal's in the room. He's got a question.
Okay.
He's a huge Chicago Bears fan, and knowing that you and your family grew up Packers with AJ, did you ever get tired of beating the Bears or something? That every time it just fulfilling your life?
I think the first home game I went to, they played the Bears. I wasn't always impressed with their fans, though. I was like, these guys. Lambeau's a different animal because it's such a family environment. It's different than going to a Bengals game, I feel like. It was a family environment. The fans actually got along, it seemed, for the most part. But no, I mean, we became massive Packer fans for 9 years, and still are, I would say, because some of the guys that we know, well, there's only a few left, maybe one actually, that were there when AJ was there. And so, yeah, and so other than him, that's kind of it. The NFL's tough business. But yeah, it was obviously like the luckiest, coolest thing for us to be able to go for that many years and have all those experiences. But again, it started with the foundational work ethic that he created. I would say AJ going from his 8th grade to freshman year, because he saw what these guys, Coach Craig, Coach Ullery, the foundation they laid, and just kind of, you'll ask him, I just followed what they did. That's all I really did. And he really kept his mouth shut for a few years because he didn't have to say anything. He just show up and kill people and play well. And it was neat to see him make our team so much better as as a proud older brother for 2 years.
Well, I think he stayed quiet until about his junior year at Ohio State.
Yeah.
I can remember getting the call from, I can't remember if it was Jim Haycock, their defensive coordinator, or I don't know who his linebacker coach was at that time. I don't know if it was Mark Snyder or Luke Fickle, I can't remember. But getting a call and them wanting to talk about AJ, and I thought, well, did something go wrong? Is he hurt? And they said, no, we just want to know why he won't speak. and they said that, and I think that's when they went to him and said, you have to become more vocal.
Yeah.
You have to. You're the leader. Everybody's looking at you. People are saying everybody needs to be more like AJ on this team. They will follow you, but you've got to speak up. So even if you're not comfortable, everyone's not comfortable speaking up. Sometimes I think you just need to try it because you'll be surprised how many people follow you.
Yep, agree. Other questions? We good? You guys now are getting closer to strapping the pads back on. So, but now I just want to say, Coach, thank you for the opportunity. It's cool for me to get to do this in a formal setting with Coach Ullery, someone I look up to. I was asked one time, is there any guest you would ever be nervous to interview, like Elon Musk or the president or anybody? And I say, no, absolutely not. There is literally, I feel prepared. There's nobody. And then I said, maybe one. Maybe one. And they're like, really? Who? I said, Ron Ullery, my high school offensive coordinator, because I always wanted to impress him, and try to live up to these lofty expectations. So that I would say that. But thank you, Coach, so much for being here. Thank you guys for being here. This was a lot of fun for me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And before we close, I want to say something about you. I want to tell you this because I think this is very pertinent to you guys. This guy, he graduated from high school, went to Miami to play. Unbeknownst to him, they had signed Ben Roethlisberger at the same time. Okay, a pretty tough guy to compete with there. Ben's not too bad of a player, and my point is, Ryan wanted to be a college quarterback. That's what he wanted to do. That was his goal. He wanted to play quarterback on Saturdays, and he could have easily just kind of said, "Well, hey, Ben's the guy here." And what you found out is they started putting you at slot receiver and running, you catch a couple passes, you might run a trick play, a double pass or something like that. So his option was, and if I remember you told me, you say, I love everything about Miami. I love the coaching staff, I love the players, I love the school, I love the facility, I love the football. I hate Saturdays because you're standing on the sideline. So his choice is accept it or be motivated enough to go get what he wants to do, play quarterback on Saturday. So he made that conscious decision, and you can do that. If you want something bad enough, and he transfers to OU and starts for a couple years there, finishes his career at OU, had a good career there. And the same thing happened with him, I don't know the specifics about it, but in his career. He was working at LexisNexis here in town and had a good job and was had chances for advancement, et cetera. But he wanted, and you were dabbling in stuff like this a little bit, but this was your passion, that you really wanted to do it. So he could have kept going and getting a paycheck and making a good living and stuff, but he wanted to do what he had a passion for. And he decided, I'm going to make the move. And he's doing a great job. If you ever watch any of these podcasts, they're very interesting. They would be probably really pertinent to the classroom at times. If you have a project or something you want to do, anything on leadership for a classroom, you could probably use his website and write your paper right off the website there, or you get your presentation, be amazing. So my point is, if you want, he's a great example of somebody that I know as a freshman he wanted to play varsity football. As a freshman he wanted to start. When his brother was a freshman, he wanted his brother to start. You remember that?
Much easier because he was a lot better than me, but yes.
But yeah, I mean, and he even lobbied then.
Yeah, absolutely.
He lobbied when AJ was not starting his first game or two. I can't remember.
Couple games. They coached. He put him in, and against Troy, he made a few tackles, and Coach Trey goes, "He's never coming off the field." And I said, "All right, we're good to go. Let's go. Now let's put him on offense too. Let's put him on offense too."
Yeah, and we did.
Yeah.
And we did. We were stupid not to.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for your attention and care, and thank you, Coach. This is a thrill for me to get to do. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.